Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Coffee with Coaches podcast. I am your slightly over-caffeinated and very enthusiastic host, Kevin. And today I have with me Benj Miller. Benj is a 10X founder and the chief architect of System and Soul, a business framework to help leaders everywhere gain clarity, control, and break through. His goal is to transform 25,000 companies by 2030 because small businesses are the lifeblood of our communities. Well said. Benj, welcome to the podcast. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Kevin. I thought this was coffee with closers, though.
Oh, coffee with coaches. I mean, a little column A, a little column B, maybe?
Absolutely. It's got to be both.
Well, pivoting from close to the open, let's talk about your superhero origin story a little bit. I kind of like to call it that. How did you get your start as a coach? How did you kind of discover how to serve people best? And then how did you go about building your business?
Yeah, I was maybe a coach in residence for a little while. As I started a lot of my own organizations, I would bring in a coach, and then I would take everything I learned and disseminate it as the coach to my other businesses. And I think I liked that as much as I liked, being the man in charge. I liked supporting and leading and coaching other people. So it became very, very natural for me to move from one to another. Very early on, one of my business partners kind of prophetically, but jokingly said, someday you're going to be a consultant. And to me, that word is just a dirty word. And I was like, blasphemy, go away. And so to this day, he's like, I told you, I called it. But I love the art and science of business building. And there's so many things that I wish I had known before I learned the hard way. That I could have learned from a coach, having somebody walk alongside me who'd kind of been there, done that, seen it, has some tools in the toolkit that could be applied. So I would just love to help as many other people down that journey as I possibly can.
I love that. You said that natural urge to pay it forward, as it's sometimes called, where it's like, and it really is, it's those, some people, they'll take their hard lessons and they'll turn inward. And some people, and this is true of pretty much every single coach I've ever spoken to, they take those hard lessons and their strongest desire is, oh, if I had this would have helped me so much. How many other people could I help by passing this on?
Yeah. Yeah. And we live in a day of entrepreneurialism where it's easier than ever to start something, but it doesn't make your rate of success any higher.
Too true. Just think about all the podcasts that have 6 episodes.
Yeah.
All the millions of abandoned podcast threads that could never make it past 10. Just as true for business as it is for anything else. And yeah, while I love the ease of getting started, you're right. There's a lot for especially coaches to do in that sort of, not even the messy middle, but just that sort of messy, like after you've taken your first few steps, you have all that passion and motivation, and you've got your intentions lined up, and kind of just how to get started. But there's always that what now moment where you reach a certain point where you don't have the questions yet that need to be answered in order for you to grow. And that, I feel like, is where a coach can just shine.
I love that, where you don't know the questions yet. That's for sure true.
That just seems to be the journey of, well, maybe the journey of life, to make it broader, but it's specifically the journey of business, is figuring out the better questions to ask and then seeking out those answers.
Yeah. As a coach, we talk about our job being to set context and then facilitate human energy. So something very, I joked about being a consultant earlier, but the distinction is very important to me. And the distinction being, you hire a consultant to give you the answer. And so my goal is to not walk in the room and give you the answer, but to give the context. Sometimes the coach sees something in the game that the players don't see because they're too close. The old adage that you can't read the label from inside the jar. Like sometimes you're just too close to the whole thing. So there is some value in just having somebody that's not ingrained, that's not, they're not tied to the result necessarily, to say, hey, I'm seeing this. Is that how you guys see it? Or is that what's really happening here? And just kind of letting them see what they do with that, where they take that, and then to have some tools, of course, to have some plays in the playbook as a coach. But I'm not there to give them the answer. I just want to give them the context of what I see and the context of what it can look like in healthy and functional ways.
Yeah, you're really creating the conditions for discovery.
Yes, 100%.
And I love that, because if you think about it, like, I just remembering, I don't have kids myself, but like helping out with my sister's kids, my nieces and my nephews. And just, you're always teaching, especially when they're young. I mean, you're always teaching as a parent, quite frankly, throughout your life, but you're always teaching when they're young, and they're always observing. And when you watch on their faces them discover something new or discover something that they were trying to figure out. And it took me a while to realize how that wasn't just a like teaching a child thing. That is human interaction. Like, every time that you are able to create the conditions and help and guide someone to a point where they discover something or realize something about themselves, about their business, about their life, about their relationships, that moment is so, I mean, I hate to throw this term out there, but it's so magical. It really is. And it's so contagious. You get so much of the shine from that discovery, as well as being able to create those conditions for someone else. They pass it on. It's just this virtuous cycle.
100%.
Yeah, so sometimes I get too excited and I start making statements instead of asking questions, which is probably a bad habit for a podcast host. But
no, a conversation's way more fun than an interview.
I couldn't agree more. Let's shift the conversation slightly. We've already been touching on this a lot, but let's talk about your business at present. And I've been kind of workshopping how to phrase this question. I've kind of started to settle on this: who do you coach? How do you coach them? So who do you really focus on coaching, whether it's C-suite, entrepreneurs, what stage of the business development they're at? And then how do you go about coaching them, whether it's primarily one-to-one or if they're a small group, like mastermind style coaching, courses, keynotes, all of the above?
Yeah. I only work with senior leadership teams, mostly companies that are somewhere between 20 or 30 to 100 employees, but I'll only work with their senior leadership team because I don't want them dependent on me, and I don't want to become that consultant that we talked about, but I want to teach them how to learn some principles, some fundamentals, and then they themselves become the leader to cascade those same principles into the organization. So I work with the senior leadership teams. We do some every quarter-ish. I'll do a training where I'll get together some of the key leaders within the multiple organizations, bring them together and do a kind of a mastermind so that they become the we call them certified leader within the organization. That's the torch bearer for the toolkit that you mentioned, system and soul, the operating framework. If they can become the one that's internally kind of holding the standard high for what is expected within the organization. Because I'm not going to be there on the day-to-day or the week-to-week, right? I show up once a quarter and I help them do kind of a retrospective on what's happened. We always learn a new tool or a team health exercise, and then we spend our energy setting context for what are the most important things for us to accomplish in the next 90 days. My kind of internal mantra is I want to help you have the best quarter ever. And so we're going to set up the strategy and the objectives that have to happen. And then we're going to spend time working on what are the issues, obstacles, opportunities that could get in the way of us accomplishing these things that we're saying are the most important things. And so we'll just I'll spend a day a quarter with most of my clients, and that's what we're doing. And so we do these masterminds every quarter so that we can have leadership advocates within the organization, making sure the execution on the daily is going down.
I love that. And I really do. I love that phrase, torchbearer, because it really it captures it perfectly, where it's you are setting up the conditions for the light and the heat to be carried and passed down from that senior leadership all the way down to every member of the team. And I just love that quarterly focus, because really it's like that's the perfect time for reckoning with how things went, identifying where you stand right now, and then charting your course going forward. I mean, it really is perfect. It's like I can, in my head, I have this image of just like standing astride this rock, looking at the horizon.
It's like a timeout, like from the business, like it's halftime, right? We're gonna do a retro. How'd we do? What the first half look like? And then what's next half look like based on that? I love how you said the reckoning. I talk about, our job as leaders is to face the realities, right? And so often it's easy to deal in the obscurities, or hide the realities. But when we can surface the realities of what's really happening, what's really going on, what really are our issues, what really are our opportunities, then we can trust our team to solve those. But if we don't bring those to the surface of reality, then we're always just dealing with fantasy.
And I really appreciate the way that you covered both aspects of that, because there is not doing the work to surface these things. And then there's also the intentional obscuring sometimes of uncomfortable truths. And you feel like you have to, as a leader, it's really important for you to not just refrain from obscuring, which is its own temptation path, but also actively engage in the work of unearthing.
Yeah. Yeah. To use a little bit crude language, our job as leaders is to eat ambiguity and shit clarity.
A little bit of vulgarity is sometimes the perfect spice. And I think that is very well said. Let's chat a little bit, because the time's already flying by. Let's chat a little bit about what might be coming up in the next 6 to 12 months. I know we're already well into April of 2022, but what are you excited about coming around the corner for you and your company?
Well, I work with about 30 other coaches around the world, most of them in the US, that coach organizations like I do with the System and Soul operating framework. And we next month we are training a whole new cohort of coaches. So that's going to be really fun, introducing, welcoming some new coaches into our band of brothers and sisters and growing our community. That's early May. So we're getting focused and ready for that. It'll be in Orlando. Super fun.
Nice. That's right around the corner, man. You said early May, and I know I just acknowledged how we were already deep into April, but then I heard that word May, and I was like, I felt a little feeling in my chest.
Yeah, we're gonna be halfway through 2022 before we know it.
Well, time flies when you're having fun, so I'm gonna choose to embrace that side of things, because time does fly when you're having fun, and I really, that's one thing that I think is important to call out for coaches and in coaching is there's heavy work. Sometimes it's intimate, sometimes it's very uncomfortable. There's a great deal of fun and joy to be had in this work on both sides.
Yeah, for sure.
Before we go, and I kind of usually ask this question as a bit of a two-parter. Where do you like to be found online, and where do you like to engage online? I know a lot of people have a preferred social media platform or a couple where they like to engage. Some people like to keep it strictly on the website. Some people like to go right to email or phone calls or Zooms or whatever. So how do you like people to find and connect with you?
Yeah, I'll give you two. Find me. You can go to the261.com. So this was an initiative I started earlier this year. There are 261 things that bounce around the minds of leaders that we know that we're supposed to be doing or thinking about or leading our people through. And so I organized them across the 261 working days in the year. So the smallest, tiniest daily email you could possibly get, you can sign up for that at the261.com. And then there's somewhere in the bottom of that page, you'll find an icon or a link over to my LinkedIn. And that's about the only place that I engage on the socials.
Smart. LinkedIn is one of the most effective, if not the most effective platform for relationship building. I get my signal to noise ratio on LinkedIn is probably the best of all the social media platforms. I get a lot of good connection there.
Yeah, definitely. If you invest in it, then it's there.
Yes. Well said again. Well, dang it. Time's already been flying by. Do you have anything else you'd like to share with the audience before I let you go?
Oh man, I'm a man of few words and less asked. So
well, I just got to say, it has been an absolute delight getting to chat with you. To the audience out there, I highly recommend connecting with Benj. He is a warm and articulate presence. We got to chat just for a few minutes before I hit record. You're going to want to chat with him. You're going to want to connect. And if you are in a place in your business where you are looking to grow, you don't necessarily have to be struggling. You're just looking for that next level. Reach out. connect with Benj. I cannot recommend him highly enough based on my less than 30 minutes of interaction.
That reminds me of the book that I have in my bathroom, and the endorsement at the top is from Jeff Foxworthy, and it says, probably one of the best books ever written. I can't wait to read it. So thank you. I appreciate that, Kevin.
I'm projecting a little bit, but based on my limited sample size, I recommend connecting with Benj. And thank you so much, Benj, for being here and for sharing time today. I really appreciate it.
Of course, enjoyed it. Thank you, Kevin.
And thanks to the audience again. And we will talk to you again very soon.